and welcome to the special edition of the Retro Brothers, a New Year special. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Dave. You all right?
I'm very well, thank you. Have a good Christmas for what was there?
God, yeah. No, not bad. I was different for us this year because we were going away. It was supposed to be different anyway. So we had something booked and then it got cancelled at the last minute. So then we were almost, hang on, we hadn't even got no food or anything for Christmas in because because we've not been away. So it was like a quick mad rush. And just do it. Not bad. We had people popping in and out for one day, and that were it. Rest of it was just us, and even TV's normally rubbish, isn't it? Anyway, but this year even worse because nobody's made anything new. So it was just stuff. God, it was worse.
We don't even watch terrestrial TV anymore, so we occasionally looked on the TV guide. There was nothing there. Thought, we'll just see what's on there. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But it's like even on the Netflix and all the others, Primes. Yeah, no. I mean, there's not much on there. And Prime, okay. Christmas, like coming up to around about September, October, there were plenty of Christmas movies you could watch under the price.
That, yeah.
And suddenly it became payable.
Yeah, that word. Yeah, they took them that. They started taking out choices off and sticking them down. Oh, yeah. Do you want to rent this? Well, I didn't have to rent it last month.
Exactly.
Why all of a sudden is like things that's on TV every week almost? You got Home Alone.
That's the other one.
I'm paying for Home Alone. Sky did exactly the same as well.
It's terrible. I'll tell you what, we will do an episode of how Alexa listens to you wanting to watch a movie that was originally payable that suddenly becomes free.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've tested it. We've looked at a movie and gone, I can't believe it's costing that much. And we've gone, Alexa, we'd really like to watch that, and suddenly it becomes available sometimes. And it's like, that can't be a coincidence.
Well, I think because Diane said to me, is my iPhone listening to me? I said, probably, because it was obviously if you've activated Siri. And it was, she went to pick up, we were out somewhere and her phone was plugged in. So it had Apple, or whatever they call it, Apple Play, and car. And she happened to talk about iPads. She got no sooner as she got home, and I think she opened up Facebook. Actually, she opened up Facebook, and never before she says has it done that. All of a sudden, loads of iPads.
Yeah. Well, WhatsApp's going to be moving over to Facebook. Like they're going to be sharing all the data now of chats and everything. So that's scary. Terms and conditions.
And we're going to talk about that today, actually. A couple of because that's obviously there's some new stuff sprouting up, new messaging services. One of them from the guy who started WhatsApp. So interesting.
Exactly. It's we'll have to do a test sometime and see which AIs and which assistants
on all of them. Yeah. So there's
really random stuff that you're never going to ask for or talk about. See what happens with that.
So we've got Google, Siri, Alexa, Bixby as well, if anyone uses Bixby. Don't know what else there is. I'm sure there's a few more out there.
You can roll your own, and I think that'd be a good episode.
Yeah.
You can roll your own, and there's some pretty decent stuff out there. I think I managed to minimise it to about 20 lines of code on Python to get an assistant working. Obviously, you had to program in what she were going to do, or he were going to do.
Yeah.
But, it spoke back to, it used a voice-to-text service, which sounded perfect.
Yeah.
And it picked up everything. But 16 lines of code, you can get yourself an assistant, and then you just tell it what to do. So it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we've got quite a few things to plough through today. We're going to go through what happened last year, some of the major items out there, and then just this might be another long episode because we're going to talk about all what happened last year and try not to repeat ourselves too much. But
we'll rant on, I'm sure.
We'll rant on, but as you see more and more of these episodes, you'll find that we are a couple of older blokes who want to have a rant about technology. That's what we're all about. So bear with us, this is a long one. So we won't do news or main section, so we're just going to plough through these nice and quickly. So the first one is Cyberpunk 2033.
Yeah.
The game that got a lot of press right at the beginning for being very, 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 very buggy. Some people never had issues at all. Like, you know, there were people out there who just said, "I don't have any issues," but it was very bad for a lot of people. This is a game that's been sort of hitting in the news way before its release, purely because everyone's been waiting for it, and the company behind it mentioned that they won't pull the developers in for overtime and do the sort of techniques that some of the others do, and they completely turned it around and started saying mandatory overtime for all the developers because it had to get out. Now, as I understand, and this could be incorrect, there were no release date for this. They weren't getting forced by Sony or Microsoft to say you will release it at this certain date. They was going to release it when they release it, and you know they decided to pull this sort of ethos that some of the bigger AAA publishers and developers are doing. So it's a sad time. I think that these guys have got CD Red. They've got a little bit too big.
Yeah.
And they are pulling the tactics, and I think sometimes it's sort of a catch-22. You become a big AAA release platform, and you could be, you know, you could carry on working like a small company, but it doesn't work. But yeah, they've got bad press about that, forcing developers to work allegedly. When it got released, it was full of bugs, and when the Xbox One and the PS4 version came out, they didn't play at all. The performance was hideous, to the point of Sony pulled the plug on the PS4 version, saying you're giving them all the money back, and I'm pulling the plug. You know, you can't sell anymore at the moment. So they've had major issues. I mean, to be honest with you, on day one of release, they made the money back easily. They were in profit because of all the pre-release purchases out there, people that went out there and bought it beforehand. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it had. I think the feeling is that there were a massive lead up to it. There were a massive campaign and a lot of advertisements. The story, the backstory to it, and everything as well. I mean, the backstory,
the actor,
and everything, and I'm like,
someone very popular is in that game.
Yeah. Well.
So
I mean, has it been I'm sure a version's come out.
They are fixed. They are fixing the bugs. I mean, I don't feel like we're getting the same sort of.
I won't mind. Yeah, I'm not going to buy next gen just to play it. I won't mind. I mean, it's out for the you know, is it out for the PC?
Oh yeah, it's out for the PC. Yeah, and you need a good one for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's a lot of this going on at the moment. There's a lot of huge titles coming out that are half baked. You know, there's plenty of them out there. There's plenty of them that do it day in, day out. You know, the plenty of them that do it, and you expect it almost now. And I get it. You know, when you develop something, it's you get to a point where you go, these are bugs that we could have to release. I can't remember the terminology. Someone told me, and it's a game dev term that the sales team use to say that these bugs are acceptable to go out on a live first release.
Yeah, and a lot of people accept them, and a lot of people aren't really that bothered. But some of it can bite them. I mean, EA Sports. Obviously, every year everyone buys FIFA or any of the sports titles. But the mass backlash that they got on 1 star, basically, if you go on the App Store, it's basically got 1 star for the FIFA 2020, not this year. I don't know about this year because it was just so appalling. And yet, you know, I think at the time when it was first released, it wasn't any cheaper than £70, £80 because they were all special edition versions. You couldn't get the standard edition until later for some weird reason. But they never actually fixed a lot of the bugs at all. It were atrocious. So a lot of people just thought, forget it. Then I'll go back to previous year.
I mean, you look at the games of like Skyrim and Fallout.
Yeah,
they get fixed by modders a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know, Fallout 3 was hideous on the 360. You know, you had some really weird physics problems, and they didn't ever get fixed. Some of them, some cases. So yeah, there are developers out there, and they accept it and then just do it, whether it's right or wrong.
Do you think? Do you think it's the do you think it's the ethical practices of the game studios, or do you think developers are lazy, or what do you think?
No, I mean, I do. I mean, I do. Part of my job is developing, and you're always under pressure from the people in the marketing, the sales teams, to push these things out. I've been in that situation. I've had a product that maybe should have taken another 3-4 months of development to get a really nice version out, and it was just, let's get it out now, and we'll deal with it, and we'll fix the bugs as we go along. So I've been there, and you could blame the developers, but these guys, certainly with the Cyberpunk, from what I hear, allegedly they've been pushed to overwork and to get out what they can. And most developers would go, I wouldn't release this.
Yeah,
I mean, there is a bit of a thing where developers are never happy with a product, so you could go on for years developing something to get it perfect, and there's always going to be bugs, there's always going to be mistakes in code. But what they released on day one, certainly for the previous gen consoles, was, in my eyes, really bad. It wasn't good. They knew they were pushing out products that wouldn't work on those platforms, but they took pre-orders and they took sales for it.
That's one of them. I mean, having said that, I suppose the Spectrum Next is one of them. I think not mine as yet, anyway. But the first Kickstarter got promised a title, and it's still in development. It's still, But a lot of people think, I'll get it when I get it. I expect that you've got one person coding it. Probably the original, it's the original coder actually, but. What they've done is released just an updated version of it's Dizzy, the Dizzy games of another one, just to tide people over free of charge. But they've all done it. I mean, look at the infamous ET for the Atari 2600, which I mean, I don't know how true it is, but I've seen a lot of documentaries that it was that rubbish that they hardly sold, and that they basically dumped them in a.
Well, they did. They dumped them into a landfill because they dug it all up and they started finding copies, didn't they? I remember that documentary. Yeah. It's a practice that's been going on for years. And it doesn't not just game development. It's cars. It's everything. But it's a bit more clearer when you're developing a game what it's going to run on, what it's not going to run on. I mean, they would have made plenty of pre-sales orders to have gone. PS4 and Xbox One, we're going to hold off because the performance is bad, and we don't want to release it with bad performance. We'll just want to work on it and bring out a good version for you guys. Clearly, they just can't handle the game.
No, and I'm sure, because when you think about it, games sell consoles, so Sony and Microsoft certainly weren't being,
I'm not sure whether Microsoft's pulled it or not yet. I know.
I didn't think they had actually, and that begs the question: are they bothered? What sort of quality control do they do?
Yeah, well, let's.
This is this is Microsoft, isn't it?
I mean, again, let's look at Microsoft. They're not really the developers, are they? Apart from
they just buy up gaming studios.
Yeah, they have gaming studios doing their games for them. So, I mean, but at the end of the day, they're responsible for the final product because it's under their name. But it's a case of until people stop buying, pre-ordering games that they desperately feel like they need on day one, and be that first person to download it. And I get the streamers on Twitch and on other platforms like YouTube. I get that they need that product, and they could do a license for those sort of people. And so you will get it maybe 2 days before or on release because they don't like a bad product going out before release. Sad time. I hope they pull the plug on the previous gen ones and I just forget about it. Concentrate on the current next gen consoles and the PCs, the people that matter. I'm sorry for the previous ones. I just don't think it's that sort of game that's ever going to run on those platforms. Maybe in a year they should bring out a cut down version or a version that still tells a story, still has the gameplay, but maybe cuts changes the way it works. I mean, it's a huge world. And that goes to, are these games getting that complicated now that the developers behind it or the people behind it aren't actually able to produce what they're promising?
Yeah, it's big enough. It's too big for the developers.
It's huge. I mean, these sandbox games now are massive.
Yeah,
and I expect GTA 6 to be similar sort of ethos of turning up with a lot of issues at the beginning. So, yeah. So the next one I want to talk about, and it's a little bit about releases and new versions. Another MSFS came out just before Christmas, and they gave you VR and snow and ice. So if you want to fly up into Norway this time of the year, get real-time weather, you get snow, you get cloud, you get all the weather, but the ground would look green. So what they did is they put in snow on the ground, they put ice on the ground, so when you land on that runway, you're going to be skidding around, and so you'll certainly see the benefits of VR. That's massive. I've seen some people over Christmas broadcasting the VR, and it looks amazing. The game looks amazing anyway, so to actually play that and it to work really well in VR, I think that's a good release, and that's something that's going to keep people going.
Yeah, the graphics. Looking at some of these screenshots.
Oh, it's amazing. I still to this day when I'm flying forget sometimes what if I just tip my head to one side and look out that window. I've said it before. It's amazing, and you know what? They are fixing the bugs. I had a couple of crashes, in fact, yesterday. But the main 3 planes that I play are modded by me, as in I've downloaded mods that improve the planes.
Yeah,
but they aren't obviously made by Microsoft. So I don't think it's that. I think it is occasional bug, but it's getting there, and we're hopefully going to get some real good third-party aircraft which will feel and work like the real thing. They do to an extent in the ones that you buy in the package, but so plenty. They're fixing the bugs. They're coming out with new releases free. They're coming out with new scenery free. Now, if you were to go and buy another simulator and get those sort of updates, you'd be paying a lot of money for them. I paid £69 2 days ago to get UK scenery on X-Plane 11. So, if they would start to charge, you're talking 300, 400, 500, and people will pay it.
Yeah.
But they're giving out for free. So kudos to them. They're sticking to the guns. They're coming out with new scenery, improved scenery, new features for free. Whereas the rest of them would be DLCs or just extra content made by third parties. So well done to Microsoft. They had a bit of a ropey start. But they've improved it, and it's more stable, and it's an amazing product. This time next year, when I'm talking about this, it's going to be amazing, unless they screw it up.
Well, yeah, there could be that, and there's history of them doing that.
There is. I just hope that they're supported like they're going to do for the next 10 years, because it's going to be incredible.
I think they're taking the time with it, which is good. And I mean, to be honest, it is Microsoft's flagship.
It is, and do you know this game alone has pushed the sales of graphics cards, hardware, the other stuff. I mean, if I was to sell my yoke, I got my yoke on eBay, hardly used, about £80. So it's the throttles and the yoke and everything.
Yeah.
If I were to sell this, the set today, I would probably get about £200 for them, second hand, because that's how desperate people are to get this equipment at the moment. There isn't anything out there. And then as quick as they bring out new stock, it's gone. So they've helped bring the desktop sales last year to a decent amount. Cyberpunk will do it as well. People all want to upgrade the PCs for that to get the best. So it's a year of the desktop, 2021.
It could be, and when we do go through what we think 2021 is going to bring, because. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, we've said this before, haven't we? Future Game. There's a lot of young people now that are in that age bracket that would have normally just got a console They've got a PC and they're gaming on a PC.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So one that I'm so happy about. This has taken way too long to die off. What we got here.
God, well, and people have been talking about it for so long. So yeah, Adobe Flash.
Yes, yes. The elephants died.
Well, it has, and I mean, they're good. Yeah, and everyone, you see, everyone sort of mocks Apple, including me. But yet, they're very brave. That they got rid of and supported Flash years ago. Granted, there's more business machines with Windows based, and there's a lot of Flash content out there, training, sort of training materials and training stuff being one of them. But yeah, so Windows 10, the update is out, and it does remove Flash from the OS. They're not forcing it at the moment, but in February they will be doing. So in February they will be forcing the removal of Flash completely, and it will be no longer on their browser, which I think will be IE 11, because I've checked, it's not in their Chromium version of Edge, but it is in IE 11, so it's going to disable. And I think Adobe have turned around on the, I think January, so next Tuesday, they're going to be blocking Flash content from running in Flash from January the 12th, with Firefox, their next release, removing it. So yeah, I think there's only, so Microsoft, so the original version of Microsoft Edge in Chrome, there's no firm date yet, but it will be 2021. But having said that, the old version of Microsoft Edge is superseded, so maybe they won't. But we'll see. But yeah, it's gone. I was trying to think the other day of anything the last Flash. I have seen a couple of old sites in Flash, even Silverlight. And I think up to early on this year, I think Sky still used Silverlight on their web-based players.
I remember Silverlight on Netflix. Netflix uses Silverlight. And again, us poor Linux users couldn't use it because of Silverlight. And a chap managed to create a package it downloaded, and it run it in under the wine, emulation, as it were, even though it's not an emulator. And it took all the calls, and you could natively download this package, which was just a browser. It was just a Windows browser, but emulated. And you could run Netflix. And I remember I had a couple of problems, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go on to their technical support and just pretend initially that I'm running on Windows and I'm having problems. Maybe I could work it out,
Yeah.
Spoke to this guy, and he goes, "What are you actually using? Because what you're describing there is fairly weird." So I explained to him, and he went, "Wow, I didn't know that you could do that." So you're legitimately watching our DRM on a Linux box using an emulated browser from Windows, yeah? Right, not a VM. No, not a VM. It's a native program as far as when Linux is concerned. It's like, I'm going to pass this on to my devs, and I'm going to see whether I can improve this for you, this experience. We know of Linux, and we know people who do occasionally request it. And there might be something coming up in the future that stops all this. And as time went on, obviously they just dumped Silverlight completely, and you could do it through the browsers and any browser. I watch Netflix all the time on Linux. So they were open to help a non-standard user. I mean, a lot of places would have gone, "Sorry, mate, you're not using the standard operating system, and you're trying to fudge it, so I'm not going to help you." But this, kudos to people like Netflix. They realised it were a problem. They realised that there were people who don't use Silverlight and never will, and they had to come up with something else. And I think they were fairly quick to drop it. And Silverlight and Flash, they were hindering development on the internet.
There were, I mean, things like, same with ActiveX controls. Things like that is why people are still on IE. You're still an Internet Explorer, because they've written proprietary stuff and it only works in Internet Explorer 7 or 8 for argument's sake, and I should imagine public services and big banks especially. I know of one that still has to have IE7, but they have to virtualize the app for it to work. But yeah, that's what stopped it. You're right, it has slowed it down, and HTML5's been out for a while now, and HTML5 does more than just web.
Yeah,
it is good for what it does, but I'm glad Flash is going.
Let's face it, it was insecure. Always was insecure.
It was. It was good for its time, and to be honest, it went beyond what it was actually created for.
Yeah, I remember the early noughties. It was just you go onto websites and up to like mid noughties, and you'd have websites just full of like flash banners and flashing animation as you're walking in. On their first landing page, and it's just you don't need that that doesn't help me tell anybody what you do. So it was okay for Flash games. I know a lot of people used to play Flash games.
Yeah.
But those websites were full of all sorts if you went on the wrong one.
Yeah.
And you were executing their code. I know it was supposed to be sandbox, but I'm never always convinced that Adobe managed to fully secure Flash.
No. Well, because if you know anything, or if anybody out there knows, when they get into patching in the corporate world, Flash, well, any Adobe product, to be honest, there's a patch every week for Adobe, but Flash were one of the worst. But yeah,
I mean, it's been irrelevant for a long time. Let's face it. And I know that there's sometimes it was still there. I mean, I know the product at Telecoms World where you had to use Flash to use their dashboards, but I think it was about two years ago.
Yeah,
I mean, even 2 years ago, Flash was irrelevant, and they started changing the product to HTML5. And actually, everyone just went, "This is so much faster and so much easier to use." So, yeah, it's an elephant in the room that really needed shooting a long time ago, but for whatever reason, I mean, I know that Adobe probably kept it running as long as they did, because just purely for security more than anything else.
Yeah.
And there were probably people still using the products out there, but very few.
Yeah. I think the advent of mobile apps stalled Flash going because people sort of moved away from web-based, and it's like, we have to have an app for everything.
Yeah, totally.
Obviously, apps can only do so much, and even apps now go back into HTML5 based web browsers because it's like they only have to write the program. They only have to write it once. I'm glad. I'm sure there's more, and we should make a list of stuff that we could do with ticking off. What should go.
Well, my fear is WebAssembly.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that another day. So the next one is Windows 10 MS Teams Edition.
Yeah, which nobody. Yeah, so I don't think many people know, but then there's probably isn't many people with Surface Hubs, and I'm sure there's nobody in the house with a Surface Hub. But the fact that more people are working from home, So the Surface Hubs come with a very, very cut down version of Windows 10, and it's actually Microsoft Teams Edition. So basically, it's kiosked almost, but they've just stripped back. It's based on Windows 10 kernel, but it's just basically it comes up with a couple of apps, like the Skype, MS Teams. It's just there to be stable. But obviously, because more and more people are doing more collaboration, doing more with them, the sort of the next release of the OS operating system for Hub is going to be a full version of Windows 10. But it will allow you to kiosk it, but it'll allow you to do it how you want it. So you're going to probably see a lot of rebranded Surface Hubs out there, rebranded into something slightly different, because you can kiosk it into anything, or not just have it as a full PC with an 80-inch 4K, and they are very good displays, touch displays. I've got to say they're really nice, but they are expensive.
Yeah, I mean, they got it right, Microsoft, this time round with the Surface. I mean, they are good pieces of kit.
Yeah,
they feel good. They feel like they're pretty decent. And you know what? They are really good displays. I know an artist who actually uses the display, and it says it's one of the finest displays you can draw on using the stylus. That being said, do we really need to go back into this sort of niche way of communicating? I mean, we've got Facebook who are trying to pull out some form of camera that you plug onto your TV and then you can talk to other people. Whereas we've got Fire Sticks and we've got other devices, Roku and all those you can plug in, which have apps which support most of the video conferencing stuff anyway, like Zoom. So do we really need a sort of a kiosk style video conference these days?
No, probably not, and I think that's why they're doing away with it, because once it's opened up, you probably will get Zoom on it. You will get other. So I think people, the Microsoft Teams is probably well, I don't know where it is. I'd have to have a look where it is, but it's certainly in the top three. You've got Cisco, you've got Teams, and obviously Zoom as your top three. Cisco WebEx. So it depends where it sits really, but I think keeping it as a niche product, bearing in mind how much they are, is probably not the right way of doing it. And looking at where Microsoft's taking the old Azure Office 365 suite, into AI automation, you're not going to be able to do that on a hub. So it's like let's open it up and let people do more with them.
Yeah,
I'd like to see what's going to happen, and maybe we'll see cheaper versions, because it's like, do you know what? Because it's a full version of Windows, we don't need proprietary hardware, such thing, just a good display, and maybe we don't have to pay £8,000, £6,000 for one.
That's the thing. You used to spend about £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 on the camera devices and the bot set-top boxes where it would sit. I mean, they were clever. When it was, you could set it so when one person was talking, it would pivot and then zoom into that person's face. But like you say, things have moved on a little bit now, and do we really need sort of something that's locked down? I'm sure there'll be corporate offices out there that'll buy these because it'll look good in the conference room when a big client comes in. It'll look good and it'll feel good for them. So yeah, I get that. I get that people would want something like this, but they ain't going to sell many units. Probably why the price is so high, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and they are learning, because I remember the first ones, and they were like tanks, massive. But the new Slimline, the 2S ones that have just come out, the 2Ss, you can have actually 3 screens together on one wall and have a big wall board of touch screens, which to me, that's that sounds good to me. So especially when you can then divide. So even though they're together, you can actually make all 3 be something different interfaces as well. So opening that up to me is you are opening it up to third parties as well.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to see what they do there, and maybe you'll see a Surface Hub that's Surface Hub, Zoom edition or whatever. But the fact that they're opening it up, they probably will sell more. It's just going to be another Surface device at the end of the day, and they don't lock them. Well, they did try and lock them down to begin with, didn't they? With the ARM, ARM, although they've got an ARM edition now, which we'll talk about later about ARM. But so I'm glad it's opened up, and maybe they'll do more, and we'll get some cheaper versions, and maybe. Now they've opened that up. You instead of having Teams Edition, if they're going to bake it into the next version of into Windows, why can't I? Then I'll just put it on a PC.
That's it.
I don't need a Surface Hub. So someday a third party, I'll just bring my own touch screen out.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's a good idea. So it'd be good to see where that goes. But so I think they did try and roll it out. Certainly. Back end of 2020, but I think they had some issues with it. So I think come April, May 2021, I think we'll certainly see those that do have one updated. So it'd be good to see what happens with that, where that goes.
I'm interested to see where it goes. Again, I'm not convinced, but I think definitely some big corporate offices.
I mean, Netflix.
Like that.
Going back to Netflix on because we on a Surface Hub 2, and I've tried it. It looks good.
I can imagine. Yeah,
I've got to set the screen. It really does look good, and I thought, if they want that expensive, I'd have one in my house, because it'll be a full PC and a TV for me. But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe it just turns into a multimedia hub. So it's not a Surface Hub is a multimedia hub, not just a comms collaboration piece. But we'll see.
Okay. So next on to plenty more of the next gen console wars.
Yeah, so we're going to go. So just some. I was thinking about it actually the other day before we started this. Well, you did actually as well. Actually, they come up with the idea. And obviously, it's the New Year special, so it's just like, what's his 2020 highlights? Really, what can we think back? It's been it's obviously been a crazy year. So, a lot of people, they've either had more time to do things like this, or they haven't because they've been too worried or for whatever reason. But yeah, there's been some 2020 highlights. And like you said, so one of them is the next gen console wars. And obviously we've touched on it with the Cyberpunk fiasco. And I'm sure, and I don't know what the other next gen games launch titles were like, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know if they were buggy. Certainly not as bad because they weren't in the news. But we've touched on this a few weeks back, didn't we? Some of the issues with the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
And the Xbox One X. I had a couple, but they released an update fairly quick. But the only thing is, I think with Microsoft is, as per usual, they're not I think there's a shortage anyway. But manufactured, I think they're going to be out of stock until of the Xbox One X. No, not One X. I keep calling it a One X. The Xbox, whatever it's called, Series X. I just wish their naming conventions absolutely.
I'm still struggling to this day. I mean, I kind of I didn't want to feel like I was leaving you hanging there, but I was trying to wrap my brain.
Yeah,
the naming conventions they're hideous, but yeah.
I mean, I got a One X because they were selling them off because Microsoft had ended support after only 2 years, and yet when you look at that against the One or the One S, it's got the specs are a lot better. They never really advertised it very well. Just that, it's got 4K gaming. Well, is that all? But when you have a look, when you look, the graphics capabilities in it are sort of 3 times more than what it were in the One.
Yeah.
And the specs were a lot better. And I've only just so retrospectively, so I thought, right, I'll get that. It's cheap. But the only reason they stopped making that is because we didn't want to confuse people with a Series X. Well, change your naming convention. It's confusing even now. But yeah, so they're on short supply, and I know nobody could get a PlayStation for love or money just before Christmas Eve. I know a few people that tried, although why you'd try a couple of weeks before Christmas, I don't know, but they did. But yeah, so I've just put in here. There's a list. So PlayStation's. I don't know if this is on Android Central. A list of outstanding PlayStation 5 bugs and errors. And there's still when you have a look to some of the issues that we talked about before, with the not able to sync. So when it goes into standby, your controller doesn't charge anymore in the actual console. They've actually fixed that now, but there's obviously still got issues on performance on a lot of PS4 games because obviously it's backwards compatible, but there's a lot of lag, a lot of performance issues on PS4 games. So I don't know if it's emulation.
I would guess so. Yeah, there must have some form of emulation there.
Yeah, because can't remember. Was it the first ever PlayStation 3 version, the big one, the rounded, quite nice version that had that were hardware emulation of PS2. So it actually had a PS2 chip in it. And then they removed that. Then they didn't do any emulation whatsoever, and then any backwards compatibility with the later versions of PS3, and then they brought it back in. But it will be emulation. But yeah, so it's got stability issue, Wi-Fi. It's got massive Wi-Fi issues as well. So I don't know if that's hardware related or firmware. Again, there's no fix for that at the moment. Data transfers again from disks and other stuff. So there's
plenty in there. I mean, you go down the list, you could.
There's
some pretty fatal problems in there as well.
There's what?
It's not just about a game not working.
No.
There's some really games crashing, rebooting to a black screen. I mean, these are huge issues. These aren't anything new because any new console coming out, even way back, I'm sure had issues. But you'd think they'll learn from it by now. I mean, look at the 360 with the overheating issue.
God, yeah.
You know, and there were times when when you were going back to the stores, and we've talked about this, where they're denying that they never can do anything for you, and you have to go to Microsoft Direct, and they would swap it out. But this list it goes on for I'd say about 20 pages for the PS5.
Yeah,
and then you're looking at the Xbox list. I mean, it's actually on Microsoft's website.
I'm going to say they actually.
So I'm not sure whether, maybe Sony has the same, but there's a lot of issues there. I mean, we're not talking about small issues. So these are complicated pieces of kit. But that being said, you can go out and buy a desktop shell. You could buy a CPU, motherboard. Yeah. You can buy whatever storage you want. You can buy whatever wireless card you want, and as long as you've got it right, and you've got, obviously you've got the right amount of power to power every device you've got in there for your GPUs and everything, it'll work. Unless you've got some bizarre technology that requires really bizarre drivers. But let's face it, plug anything in these days, and it should generally work. So that's when you've got something where it's an unknown. So Microsoft do it really well on their operating system. You can plug in a lot of pieces of kit and it'll just work.
Yeah.
These are consoles where they've chosen the design, they've chosen the hardware, they've chosen the software, they've put in the drivers, the controllers aren't third party, although I'm sure you can buy third party ones, or you will be able to at some point. And yet, they're making such massive mistakes like this on release.
Yeah.
So is this going back to the developers on games, AAA games, where they're going, that's about as far as we can go. We said we'll release it on these dates, so we're going to have to release it, and we'll just have to deal with it afterwards. And if they are doing that, then again, people are going to pre-purchase these devices, spend a lot of money on them, and they're just going to, are they going to deal with it and just say, it's just how it is these days. This is a constant sort of rollout of everything, where your first release is always a bit buggy, doesn't have quite all the features you expect. But these are consoles where you should be able to tie down that hardware and get it to work fairly well. And yes, there might be a software bug in there, occasionally crashes the platform from day one. But this is a huge list. Yeah. This is massive. And these aren't people without money. So what are they doing? What is it? What is the answer of what they're doing? Are they just rolling these things out going, do you know what? Buy them because we know we'll sell them and we'll fix it later. Or they've no quality control. They literally have no quality control for these things. But it's not a good excuse in my eyes. You're gonna have overheating issues, with the 360 and all that, and there might be issues. You could design the chassis as best as you could, but you might have an occasional problem where something happens. Get that, but this is terrible. This is not. In fact, I was go so far as to say inexcusable of what they rolled out here. The fact that they can't get enough out, well, let's blame COVID for that. But they knew when these things were going to be released, or thereabouts, so they could have hopefully thrown cash at some manufacturers and gone, look, we need these things out. That's by the by, but this is just totally wrong. But it's just how it seems to be. It seems to be the culture of roll it out and we'll deal with it later.
Yeah, I mean, COVID or not, and yes, okay, it's like, well, hang on, we're going to lose sales, because they've got to hit this Christmas. But these projects are started a while back, and it's not as if the small companies, they've got money. It's not as if they're going to go, if they miss this year, they're not going to go broke. People are still going to go out and buy a PS4 and the One X, which in my mind they killed it too early. Give it another year, because to my mind they want enough games for it. Let it continue. Nobody were crying out for one this year. The people only cry out for them when they're announced.
Exactly, and it's just they feel like they had to get it out before Christmas. Fine, then they should have chucked money at it. And do you know what? As we can see with the vaccines, if you chuck enough money at it will get done.
Yeah,
but obviously, you can invest only so much money into something before it becomes a real loss leader. But again, I bought this desktop and I just chose the parts that I wanted. Didn't think about whether it was compatible with any OS. I just thought, well, that's what I want, and that's what I got, and it works. And I don't get a blue screen. I don't get a kernel panic. Software sometimes crashes, but that's software. But I'm not having this issue.
No, but maybe. I mean, the original Xbox, the very first one, were very generic. In that it was basically, Windows 2000.
Yeah,
it was Windows 2000 in its essence. It wasn't a plug and play thing, but they used generic hardware. So it wasn't. That's more of a PC than most of the others. I even think to a certain degree the 360 were. But I think. Do you think so? The issue is that they've got some niche, right? It's got to be, we'll build, so they've gone the hardware manufacturer and go, right, okay, we know that works, but you've asked for this spec, so we're going to have to do something new just for you. And all of a sudden, that's what's causing the issues.
Well, from what I understand, the CPU in one of the consoles is just basically an AMD. But they've obviously customized it, and I think the same for the GPUs, I believe, anyway. But it is based on existing chipsets. They haven't gone out there like some of the other consoles. I think it's PS3, PS4 did the Cell processor.
Yeah, that's what the PS3, because it went hard to PS3 develop for it. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously there is that. If you make it too unique, then it's a lot harder to develop on. I get that, but these are PCs. They will have used a lot of tech that's available off the shelf and then tweaked it. But that's the beauty of it. I can, as a developer of a console, I can pick and choose a CPU and a GPU and storage that I think is going to be good for the console and give the best performance, the best experience for a cheap price. Yeah. Because let's face it, if you were to build similar performance, you're talking a lot more money on a desktop. I'm afraid it's just the way it is. But that being said, because you're choosing those items and then you put them all together and you're designing the boards and everything else, you as a designer can make sure that device, it's like getting a custom PC built that will work. It's like going to a manufacturer and saying, right, I want to be a custom PC builder. These desktops, I've got 2 units I'm going to push out every year. It's the same design, but I'm going to customize them. So you get no bottlenecks on the CPU against the GPU. You got the best, fastest throughput from the SSDs. Everything that you can think of. We're going to customize and design a motherboard we know it's going to work based on the existing technology out there. So that being said, you should be able to develop something like that and get it working without having less. I'm having less issues on a desktop I threw together. Well, I didn't throw together, but it was put together by somebody else. So, and there's plenty of people out there who do build their own PCs. They don't have issues.
Yeah.
Yes, it becomes more complex when you've got a console and you have to design the boards and everything else in there. But that is the strength. You know that platform will be stable. Why I buy a console is my PC might crash occasionally, or I have to update my drivers all the time. I have to manage the operating system. That's all taken care of, in theory. These issues here are telling me that it's not getting taken care of anymore. So what benefits have you got? You might have occasional console game that's unique to your platform. You know, I get that. Animals Crossing and all the rest of it. So that's it. You get an occasional game that's unique to your platform. You've got something you can just turn on and hopefully it'll work. But at the moment, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of people, maybe about 90%, I don't know what the ratio is, of no issues whatsoever. It shouldn't be like this.
No, no, and they're not. Yeah, they're not cheap, are they?
No.
Yeah,
Because they're designing something, it should work.
£100 consoles, so yeah, it's so it should be better. And in my mind, they've just been sod it. You know, we want to get a revenue in, not because like for survival of the company, because it isn't. It's just like, no, we want us revenue up this year so that we're releasing them wherever.
Yeah, exactly. And people
you know,
are going to buy it.
Time will go, oh yeah, people reporting these issues. They've probably got this list already. No. You know, they probably already know about it. In fact, they probably know more that they're probably nobody's going to publicise because, well, nobody's reported them, so let's just leave it.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure stuff goes out off the shelf that you just don't find an issue with, and then suddenly someone does something that you didn't think that they would do, and all right, okay, so you're using it this way. Didn't think about that, so yeah, okay, that's a problem, we'll put that down. Yeah, you're going to get that.
Yeah. Some of these are generic, though.
This is just hideous. Yeah. And, you know, really all they're doing, all they should be doing is updating their OS.
Yeah.
With the latest and greatest drivers and everything else, and the latest and greatest experience for that particular generation, just so that they get the best experience. So, are they building a brand new OS from scratch? Probably not. So it's an upgrade.
Yeah. Well, the Xbox is Windows 10.
Exactly. So this should be the more stable platform going, shouldn't it? So yeah, that's the thing. Just this culture of releasing trash and people are buying it just seems to continue. And let's face it, until people stop pre-ordering, you know, this whole ethos, early access, that works because you are getting a product that's broken from the beginning. Yeah. You're funding a developer or a company, and you hope to get a product to the end of it. But you're helping them develop something and then getting a cash injection. This is pre-order our wonderful product. It's like snake oil. Wonderful products don't work, but it doesn't matter because you've already paid for it.
Yeah, you're paying for them, but don't care because it's a brand.
It's bragging rights. It's I've got it first before anybody else. I pre-ordered it, and you know what? People, you've got to stop pre-ordering stuff. Wait until it comes out and then make the choice because. You know what? A few days, a few weeks, or a month after release isn't that important to review as it is, but they always get kit beforehand or access to the software beforehand. But for other people, just wait, guys and girls. You know, it's just.
I know.
This could go on for an hour, so we'll leave it there. But stop pre-ordering things.
Yeah,
and then the culture will change. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is big tech controls.
Yeah, so this is, and I've said, is it because of what's some of the events that's happened in 2020 that this has been sort of brought out into the open, or did it always happen? So this is so basically this is. Yeah, your big tech, but mostly social media, really, because everyone's life is social media, and in that essence, people's lives is then governed by social media, and then people's lives is almost chosen for them to a certain degree. Some of them don't care, so you know, people listen to weird conspiracy theories. Some people won't. And there ain't a lot of middle. I just don't think there's a lot of middle ground anymore on these platforms, and I certainly don't think some of them, well, Facebook, Twitter. I don't think there's any middle ground at all, really. Apart from you know, obviously you've got companies who just come out, just we've got this happening, that happening, but you know, your normal person, or somebody who wants to retweet something that's happened, and then all of a sudden you've got an onslaught of crap and views. It's and yeah, big tech got slated years ago for online bullying and offensive behaviour, offensive. But are they taking it too far? Because are they almost going into the fact is, yeah, I mean, you look at the guy, and I can't remember his name, the guy who's CEO of Twitter now at the moment, and you look at him, you look at the pictures of him as well now from a few years ago today. Looks like somebody from some weird cult,
allegedly.
Yeah, but allegedly, yeah. He's got that weird beard, which it's like they said this, didn't they? When goatees were in fashion, that's the evil version of.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Back me and you, yeah. So is it? Are they pushing their beliefs internally? So they've got their own ethos, and is that then almost are they then changing? No, we're going to flag that up because we don't like that. We're going to flag that up because that's against what we do. We're going to put your search. We're going to put something that you've put on a search. So if you go and search for something that's topical at the time, I'm not going to say what it is. It's topical or something you want to look at, and it's like, oh, there's nothing there, so that doesn't exist. So that's not, that's rubbish. Is that because I've searched for it and it's not there? But and I've seen that where Google have pushed things down on the search engines. On certain things, and does that? How far do they go? YouTube as well. Just look at the things that YouTube have decided to do, where they're just going to demonetize people or do things because it's against their policies. But their policies change very regular, and it's the policies get a bit more radical because YouTube was a platform, an independent platform for anyone to do within reason what they wanted. So and when I mean in reason, I don't not come up with loads of porn or things that they're not supposed to do. But it's all about free speech, and that's what multimedia, the social media platforms should have been. But I think, are they now being sensitized? Are they censoring too far now?
I would go down. I'm gonna do a bit of a devil's advocate as well as sort of like agree with you as well. So social media is a thing, and we can't get away from it. I don't use that much. I used to use Google Plus because the community felt like it was a less hated place. There's less hatred going on. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there were groups in there that were, but you didn't feel like you were in a place full of hate. Twitter. I mean, the comments you see on people's posts, it's almost like Twitter is somewhere in there, and they don't have in their T's and C's going, you must be abusive and awful to anybody who posts a comment that you don't agree with. So it can have its bad times, but it to a degree, it's not really changed that much because we used to have we still have. There are still online forums, web forums, still exist, and I still have my name on a few, but you do get occasional abusive people on there. But I want to ask you a question. So Facebook allows you to communicate with your friends and share your life, your beliefs, and things that you enjoy, or just general whatever you like. Google allows you to search the web, and you can find pretty much anything you can look for in there. Well, obviously you're talking about controls there, but in theory. Twitter, you can tweet about your favourite things or talk to other people, famous people. Do you pay for any of this?
I think you probably do somewhere. Otherwise, how do they make the money? So
this is where
I don't. So I don't have no. So so directly, I don't pay a subscription for any of these. But,
no. So why? What's the problem? Because if they want to mine your data, that's their currency, and they can reuse that. You've agreed to the terms and conditions. You've agreed to everything. If you feel that they're no longer useful for you or private enough for you to be able to use it, you can close the account and, in theory, request that delete data, which I'm sure some cases it doesn't happen, and move on. Unfortunately, they know that you can't move on in some cases. I mean, there are other alternatives to Google, DuckDuckGo, which is the weirdest name of a search engine, but they are, in theory, a free, open search engine. Gives you very similar results to Google, but they don't track your data and they don't care. But you've got to also ask the question, how are they able to provide a service without any monetary value? So you're using all these useful tools. People use LinkedIn to be able to gain new business, gain new partners, colleagues, and share business ideas and sell. You do pay for that, but you only pay so much. So I think, do we get to a point where if these big companies are going, right, we have terms and conditions and we have to change the way we work because there is hate speech out there. There are issues with that, and we can only do so much in terms of policing it. You're asking us to police, so we will police. Now they're going to get it wrong.
I think they get it wrong all the time because I think
there isn't enough people in the world to police these platforms anymore.
Impartial,
and there are no way that they can have enough people to police these platforms. So the only way to do it is to use algorithms and AI and search for patterns and learn from the mistakes. And you're right, there are people who are having demonetized and having their stuff removed for no apparent reason whatsoever, other than a system, a bot has gone through and gone, nope, that's breaching something. I'm going to remove that. And it's then up to the user to go back and go, well, I actually don't believe in that, and sort of work through their case. So I ask you the question, do we need to change the way we work on the internet? We get all these free services, which, let's be frank, are amazing. They don't go down that much. They work for what you need to do. If you use Facebook and you use that to communicate with your friends and colleagues, it works. If you want to share pictures and everything else and tell other people what you're doing, it works. If you want to go on Instagram or TikTok and you want to show off something that you can do or something you like, you can do it and it works. You aren't paying a penny for this. And as a company, I'm not a company, but if I owned one of these, I could argue that I'm trying to police the best I can, and obviously we've written algorithms, and possibly certainly Google, I reckon, will be using AI for removing or checking content, but they're going to get it wrong.
Yeah, but should they be picking and choosing what they censor and what they don't censor? Because I think
why not?
I think they go beyond just policing and taking off just abusive behaviour and stuff, which is still there. And I think sometimes these big techs, a lot of them are left, because there's a lot of young people working from now, and a lot of people got left wing ideals or a certain ideal. In 20 years' time, it'll be a different one. So are they? So does the instead of policing it, do they now write the algorithms, or do they do stuff based on what they think is right?
To an extent, they will. They'll be used. I mean, probably officially they'll be saying.
Officially, they're saying they're impartial. Yeah, they'll say no, we're impartial. But there is a lot of examples where they're not.
Yeah,
and that's, to be honest, that's the same with you mainstream media. That's the same with news channels.
Let's face it. We obviously know about Trump and Facebook.
Yeah.
And advertising. We know that these platforms can easily influence huge amount of people. I mean, you've got people, anti-vaxxers now, people who believe in a flat world. Now, just going on that example, if we didn't have social media to spread ideas as quick as it does, if you were to have like a physical room where someone sat there and said, I believe the world's flat, how long would it take for them to be shot down in terms of their ideas and beliefs, and then for it to be just left there? So if you're in a large room of people, a bar, pub, whatever, and someone in your group goes, I believe the world's flat, I think it's all fake, you're going to find majority of people there are going to go, well, you're talking absolute junk.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, in that social aspect, those daft ideas, anti-vaccine as well, would be shot down unless they went to a group of people who also had the same beliefs. But then that's a physical thing, and that didn't happen as much. I know there's cults and all this, but you know,
Yeah, exactly.
so
But
in a physical social world, those sort of ideas get shut down. Whereas on Facebook and Twitter, you might have the majority of people going, that is absolutely wrong, and what you're saying is incorrect, and you're spreading the wrong information. Unfortunately, it's so much easier now for people who have the same beliefs to grab onto that idea and spread it.
yeah,
So what I'm saying there is, these platforms are for good, but they're also for bad, and they do need to be policed, and they're going to get it wrong.
but if I
So they can easily influence how the world works and how it
they
thinks
can,
these days. That is a danger.
Yeah. And I think they do, and and obviously allegedly, well, it's not allegedly, it's out there, certain. I think Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook has, he's put a lot of his donations to certain political parties or certain
Allegedly
things in the past, and obviously look at the Cambridge Analytica stuff. And it's still coming out now.
There are.
So there's things there. So if I went on Twitter and went, the Earth's flat, and that's what I believe, you're going to get a lot of abuse. Of course you are, but you've got to think, well, if I'm saying the Earth's flat, I know the majority of people in the world think it's round. But that's what I think. Should Twitter remove it and go, that's not factual? So so we're going to remove all your posts because this fact checking as well.
Yeah.
It's like well, hang on a minute. It's all right fact checking, but how do sometimes it's like you can't prove the other side either.
In an ideal world, I mean, they shouldn't be taking down people's beliefs because whether people believe it's round or flat, that's up to them. As long as they're not like anything, and it's probably don't want to get too political, but if anyone has a belief and it isn't hurting someone else and it isn't wrong, if you know what I mean, something illegal, then okay, fine. You've got to sort of go, well, I disagree, and because X, Y, Z, and that is a pleasant conversation that someone's had. It's a debate, not an argument, and that's it. The two people part going, okay, you convinced me or you haven't, and that's it. Good day. But it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I mean, most companies
and so yes, they might take things down, and I think they're wrong for taking some of these stuff down. I think there should be more checks when they're taking material down. I think they just don't have the way to police it. Do you know what the answer is? I think personally, the answer is to actually have people moderate. So you've got places like forums where you might have one person who fired up the forum website, and then before he knows it, he's got 4,000 subscribers signed up, and they're talking about all sorts, and there's just thousands and thousands of conversations going on every week. You can't police that. So the only way to do that in the forum world is to have people that have been there from, say, the beginning, or you can trust, and you give them the moderator access to say, right, that's wrong because of this X, Y, Z. Which a human being doing that. Now, I'm not saying they're any better. In some cases, there might be somebody who goes, whoa, you can't say that, removes it, and actually then someone puts a complaint in, but then it can be fact-checked, can't it? It can be checked. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's going to work. What I'm saying is you've got a human being there. So what I think these platforms are missing is saying, right, we're going to start now pulling in people that don't work for Twitter to start moderating. Now, it could be as simple as going through all the Twitter feeds and just generally using Twitter. And if they find something, and you can flag in inappropriate material, but they actually have a bit of a higher priority. So they can click on flag, give a real reason why that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And then it gets checked by real Twitter, Google employees, Facebook employees. That's what's missing on these platforms at the moment. And I know there are people eventually, if your YouTube video gets pulled down, it has to be taken care of by a real person, and I'm sure there might even be some bots in front of it before it gets to a real person. But a real person has to deal with it in the end.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going wrong. We're not self-policing. If you want a free platform where they can only allow for so many resources to check this material, because there's millions of stuff getting generated in a daily basis, probably more, then you're going to need the general public to help. And they should have volunteers, like Wikipedia. And they're happy to be a volunteer, and they can check and say, need a citation on this, because that looks like you just made that up.
Yeah.
Or they remove it completely. But that person can go back and say, I don't agree with that. And then it's a case of two people sort of deciding what they're doing, and it goes to a high level if needed. That's the problem with this.
Yeah, it is. I think that's probably where you're right, rather, because I think I think YouTube's one of them. It's like, that they'll point blank refuse. It's so, for argument's sake, the US election, the vote rigging. Nobody's ever going to know, but it's like, no, there's no evidence. But then obviously somebody comes up and shows the videos of somebody pulling votes out from and thinks, so there's something there. But it's like, no, none of that. So it's like, we don't want to see that video. So they're almost going too far the other way. I think, like you said with Wikipedia, I think it's like, well, where's your proof? Yeah, we'll leave that on, providing you're linking to a source where you've got your information from. Yeah. If you haven't, then to me, you've just made that up.
Exactly. And, you've got to be careful with that as well, because people have got views. You can't prove the existence of God. You can't prove certain things like that. So you've got to allow that sort of freedom of speech. But for real factual information, yeah, totally, it needs a citation or whatever you want to call it. So yes, it is wrong. You are right. It is wrong that they're having these controls, and they are possibly removing stuff because of other reasons, not just the terms and conditions. We can't prove it, obviously. Have they got too much control? Yes.
Yeah.
Do they have too much influence? Yes. The only way to stop this is start allowing general public to volunteer. And you could even go as far as saying, I need a copy of your passport, I need a copy of this, I need a copy of that, to prove that you're a real person.
Yeah.
So you do proper checks and have these volunteers running through all the platforms going, no, yeah, no, yeah, no. Or just marking them, it's just like putting a highlighter on them going, you might want to check these. And they have the bot then check it, and then maybe whatever else. But but again, no one's paying for it. You're not paying for it. LinkedIn, you are, obviously, once you get to a certain level. And maybe they've got it right. Maybe that you have a Facebook light version and you pay for it with your data, and you have a Facebook that never mind your data and you pay for it.
Yeah, you're probably right there. With LinkedIn. Yeah, I've never, even with a free, I've got the free version, but I've never seen anyone post any real hard views on there. I think because nobody's stupid in it. Everyone's got. I think it's more of a mature platform, because obviously at the end of the day, your career's on there. If you're going to use that to, you could lose your job.
You know why? You're a real person on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right there. You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. That you've got a platform where you're a real person and you're accountable for being a real person, like you are in the street or in a real environment. Whereas you can hide on Facebook. I mean, all right, yeah, Facebook, you're supposed to be in theory a real person, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything these days.
Well, how many people I've seen that you've got 3 or 4 different accounts, and the different personas and on the different accounts.
But there are people on Twitter who are real people, really celebrities or real people who have high importance, who Trump, who will post absolute garbage.
Yeah,
and it's just. So, yeah, maybe, what is it, LinkedIn that doesn't, but it's a professional environment, you are seen as a professional person, you work for a certain company, and so you've got to be seen that way. Is there any way we can take that model and put it onto the platforms? You're right, maybe there's something there, but yeah, it's going to be an ongoing thing, this, and I do believe that we've got to be very careful these don't influence the world that we live in, and they already are, to an extent
And
where they've got more
there's
power
many
than
of
the
them.
governments.
Yeah, I think there's many of them now because you've got Facebook buying
Yeah.
them all up, and you know the others. But
That being said, I would say there are some out there. There are platforms that maybe a lot of people haven't even heard of that you can use. I mean, I won't go through any because I can't remember off the top of my head. But you know, when I started looking after Google Plus died, I looked for an equally nice place, as it were,
yeah,
to live and chat and just converse with people. You know what? There are stuff out there, but there's not a lot.
no, I suppose this leads on to the next one. So it's obviously, you got data mining. So what? Obviously, WhatsApp. You know, if you go, it's encrypted, but the metadata is not. So people are still taking in information, plain text. So a lot of people have started looking at. You know, there's emergence of new sites, and I just had a quick look, and so Signal, it purported. I don't know if it is to be the most secure messenger service for anyone, and it's a not-for-profit organisation.
I'm just trying to think.
And the founder of WhatsApp has just invested $50 million into it. So
the founder who's left WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the guy who started, I can't remember his name. So the founder of WhatsApp who started up WhatsApp, obviously he's not there anymore since Facebook had bought it, but he's now, he's put $50 million into this because he's still what he perceived WhatsApp to be is not where it's going, but he sees Signal as being that. So I think
that's the chicken and the egg thing, isn't it? Because there are some amazing platforms out there that work, and but you've got to get the people to move on to it.
Yeah.
To use it. I mean, Skype was okay at the time before Microsoft bought it out.
Yeah.
A lot of people used it because everyone just kind of fell onto it. I'm sure there are better conferencing software than Zoom, but that seems to be what everyone's kind of wants to use. So you kind of not have to use it, but you kind of feel like you have to use it, and Teams as well. Purely because that's what a lot of people are using. WhatsApp, a lot of people do use it. And that's kind of like what you need to do is you need to sort of, for all the ones that come out that never make it, you need to have one that maybe can come out and just get adopted, but you need to make sure that a lot of people adopt it. Because otherwise you're just going to be talking to people on different platforms, which no one wants.
You are, but I suppose, and a lot of people are searching for different things, and they'll do exactly what I did. And if for your very reason, right, I'm going to stop using WhatsApp because I need something secure. Hang on, the founder of WhatsApp, purported now the most secure messenger, encrypted end to end and in transit, doesn't do anything with your metadata. That's all secure. Doesn't store it. I'm going to look at that. So maybe, there's that. And you look at, I even thought, right, what's an alternative to YouTube? And I sort of got the top 10 alternatives. But some of them are surprising because I'm like, really? Because some of them are very, hang on, this is mainstream. You got Vimeo in there. In fact, we'll just go down the top 10. So this is NordVPN have gone and done top 10. So number one, so you got Vimeo, DTube, which I do know DTube, and I know a lot of people that have been demonetized and stopped on YouTube have moved over to DTube. I've signed up for it just to have a look at it. I thought, is it going to be something? I think it's still police. I don't think you can put what the hell, but I think it's like freedom of speech, whatever. We're not going to, at the moment, take things off. So people have started moving over to there. Some I've never even heard of. Internet Archives video section, Meta Cafe.
I've heard of Meta Cafe. Yeah, they've been going for a long time.
I've not heard of. 9gag TV. Not heard of that. Daily Motion. I've heard of that. It's been out for a while. Vivo, definitely. Twitch, obviously. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Twitch has grown. I think Twitch were fairly niche on the people that were on there, but I think that's when you look at what channels now are on Twitch, it's moved beyond gaming and beyond.
Yeah, obviously Amazon have bought Twitch out.
Yeah.
Twitch has improved in some ways, but it's also not so much in other ways. They most of 2020 is a lot of people being hammered with the strikes, 3 strikes and you're out and you're completely banned with the music being played over streams. And I won't get into that today, but so yeah, they've had their problems, but yeah, certainly there's a lot more people on there doing art and right down to just whispering into microphones.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's certainly one.
Some of these are pretty big in mainstreams, but I mean, and people are using them, and I think, and I hope they do, and I hope more people do, because it may make the likes of Facebook, Google, YouTube, and that sort of thing. Oh, hang on, we're sort of losing channels here and subscribe. People are moving elsewhere, so we're not, our enforced paid advertising and everything. Our revenue's gone down. What's going on? So I mean, what they'll end up doing is buying these alternatives. That's what probably will happen, and it does. But no, it's interesting. It has grown a lot, and a lot of people, a few years ago, a lot of people don't know that there's no YouTube, or they just put the amount of people. Twitch and all the others. I mean, certainly for 2021, 22, I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
I think there's going to be a lot of people who are sort of disenamored with some of the platforms. Certainly if it's revenue based as well, and they're losing revenue because of stupid rules, for whatever reason. But I've seen a lot of people who have attempted over the last 15 years to, for example, de-Googlify their lives. So to remove Google out of everything. So remove Gmail, search, using the Drive, everything. I'm yet to see one person who's actually managed to pull away from one of these huge services as a professional and say, right, I found total alternatives that work for me, and actually have enough audience or money coming in using those services to be able to live and work and have a decent workflow that allows them to carry on doing what they want to do. And, we could probably go through attempting it one time, de-Googlifying or something like that. What other alternatives out there? Do they work? And I've seen it, and I've not seen one person actually make it yet.
Well, you'd have to buy in a while.
That's the power of those platforms. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. With YouTube, you've got a huge audience. The others, you've got audiences, but nowhere near as much. So monetary-wise, you see people now that they don't just broadcast on Twitch or YouTube, they broadcast on both.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Because they know they're getting the maximum amount of audience. Well, let's hope that someone, Elon Musk or something like that, comes out with an alternative, throws billions into it, and allows us to be able to use something that's not quite Google or Facebook,
Yeah, we'll see. Well, there'll be Alexa.
yeah.
And everyone's Alexas will be going now. We keep seeing it.
If I had Alexa in this room right now, it'd be going crazy. So next thing is sort of like, actually, it's more a view of 2020 on terms of prices of GPUs and CPUs and everything else. So obviously we've gone through, there are key games that came out last year that pushed the sales of new hardware, pushed the prices of new hardware. So prices of GPUs at the moment, I mean, I don't even know what the prices are for the 3000 series, but if I wanted a 3070, for example, an NVIDIA, current prices, because they fluctuate so much, bear in mind, and it's whether or not you can actually get one. So a decent card, RTX 3070 at the moment, you are looking at almost no stock in most places, to start off with. So RTX 3070 will cost you average between £500 to £600 for just a GPU.
Yeah.
And that's not obviously high end. It's a good one. because I've got a 2070 and I know it's a decent. So the 3070 must be a decent card, but because of the lack of availability of graphics cards and of a good competitor until AMD came out with their newest, you've got Nvidia dominating the market in 2020 because there's so many people at home who want to game again, and yet last year I think helped their sales, and you know, these days, should you really be paying nearly half of a grand just to get a decent graphics card? I remember when you could spend maybe 200, 300 and get almost a top end. You know, your top end. So we're looking at a 3080. I would say probably about £1,000. Let's have a look. Yeah, so 800, 900, £1,000. So you're talking what would be considered a half decent machine. So a whole desktop could cost you like 1,200, and you're looking at 1,200 just for the graphics card. And you know, the thing is with these GPUs, the other reason that the price is going up is people are still mining Bitcoin. I think we're up to about 40,000, 30,000 or something for one Bitcoin. So, do you realistically think that these prices are legitimate, or do you think they're just driven by the people buying them, or do you really believe that Nvidia are charging those prices?
I don't know. Is it down to a shortage? Is it down to?
There's certainly a shortage. There's
definitely a shortage of graphics cards. So is it the fact is, you know, they're not continually manufacturing and they can't. So because there's going to be less, that's going to inflate the price anyway. And as there's more demand because it's full circle, isn't it? You'll know as soon as you know there's a short demand. I better get one now, because if I don't get one now, I won't get one for the next 6 months or whatever. But I must have, building a game machine. I wasn't going to do. I was going to wait, but I better build it now, and I better get this graphics card. So it's supply and demand. So it's bumped up the price and inflated sales. I think it's done a bit of both.
Well, that's the thing, innit? And you know, maybe Nvidia should bring out more, or try to attempt to push out more. But I mean, I've seen pictures of people with huge farms where they're making, I think they're making about $10,000 to $20,000 a month on mining crypto coins. It's because they are quite powerful pieces of kit now. Yeah, I mean, it is where it is, and people are paying the money because they want the top end. And I think it's just a little bit like the PlayStation eBay item that we found for a few grand. People are willing to pay the price to get that top end piece of kit. And again, like you say, it is probably supply and demand, but the pricing of GPUs are absolutely extortionate at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think hopefully this year, if things return back to normal, hopefully they can push out more. And I've not seen any tests. I don't know whether the AMD ones have come out yet, so I've not seen any test results on those. But hopefully AMD make a sort of a mark on that and push the Nvidia back a bit. So in terms of the CPUs, I'm going to declare AMD the winner of 2020. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah,
they have done absolutely everything right in terms of CPUs. Last year, they've concentrated on and innovated on pushing out more cores for the money. In terms of the actual process of the chips, the actual size, they've reduced the size of them to make them more efficient. I think it was around about November when this last set came out, and they're absolutely killing Intel at the moment because it just looks like Intel don't seem to want to innovate. They're still locking down their CPUs, so you can't overclock them unless you buy their special editions. So AMD are saying do what you want. Overclock it, overheat them, do what you want to our CPUs. We're going to leave them unlocked because we know that's what people want. Whereas Nvidia, just like, Intel is going, oh, well, you know, let's just bring out another one and add a few extra cores on there. The process size of the CPUs are not any smaller. Doesn't really matter because we know we are the top dog. Honestly, I envisage this year also being, unless Intel surprises with pricing and a better processor, that AMD will also annihilate Intel for this year as well.
Yeah, and this is so yeah. I'm going to touch on this in what's going to happen in what I see an interesting thing in 2021 because AMD. So a lot of people, so people have been doing a lot of benchmarking recently, and you know there's going to be no surprises. Obviously Apple have decided we move away from Intel, create their own ARM-based chips. And it's a single chip as well, so the memory and everything, the GPU is on one chip to make it more efficient. And the benchmarking I've seen is when you look at and it does do all three, Intel's way down, absolutely way down, and then there's only AMD at the moment that's even competing. So I just So I think for Intel, it ain't just going to be AMD. I think they're going to be. Are there going to be another Cyrix? If you remember the Cyrix processors, from the 90s.
In terms of Intel,
are we going to see?
No,
I mean, obviously, they're more than a chip. Yeah, they do absolutely loads of stuff. Are people going to move away from? It is ARM because I'm going to talk about ARM when we get onto 2021 stuff because it is going to be interesting what people are going to do next. The graphics, and I don't think it's going to let up either in 2021.
No,
certainly.
I think when we obviously see these AMD graphics cards and we see what they can do. I've not really followed it for the last couple of weeks, so it might be possible that they've been released and people are benchmarking them. But I think now we've got two decent high-class GPUs that in 2021 people might have a good choice of. If the AMD ones turn out to be a decent piece of kit and work really well, then if NVIDIA can't push out their supply, they're going to completely lose the war, or certainly lose a good portion of their profit in 2021. I think people will. I'm still an NVIDIA man. I will still continue to buy NVIDIA because I know they work and I know they work well. Now, I was very much in the same sort of thought when it came to processors. I haven't had an AMD since mid-noughties. I've always stuck to Intel because I know it worked and it worked well. I always put i7s in laptops and things like that. But this processor is absolutely the most ridiculous processor because it's a 3900X. So it's not even the latest versions.
Yeah.
And this thing absolutely kills in terms of performance. I've had our video, because we do video, encoding and saving to a disk whilst playing a high-end game and getting a well over 100 FPS. And I've never had a stutter.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I haven't got anything else running in the background. I've just got a game running. But it just encodes the video and sits there. I've had two games running. I've had War Thunder and I've had Microsoft Flight Simulator running at the same time. Purely because I had one on a flight and I was playing the other one just to play a few games. All right, and a little bit of stutter on MSFS a few times, nothing major. And it's just like, I mean, all right, there's graphics cards have got a huge amount to do with that, but the CPU is able to throw these programs around on the system and not bottleneck. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think, Intel are going to have to do something. But and I've seen a lot of third places. Obviously, consoles, a lot of the consoles as well. They've moved away from NVIDIA graphics, and they've all gone for an AMD base.
AMD, yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting. Really, the big boys aren't the big boys anymore.
It's going to be the GPU battle this year, I believe.
Yeah.
So obviously we're leaking on to 2021 predictions. So we kind of covered a little bit of 2021 there, Andy. So this is the final bit now where we're going to get some predictions, right or wrong, for the year and what might happen.
Yeah, things to watch out for. Interesting things anyway. Well, one of them is the Atari VCS finally arrived. And there's been a lot of because this has been going on for years, and there's been court battles from original developers not being paid. Well, the system actually does it exist? Does it even exist? Because there were even a point in time where there were I think there were a video shot purporting to show a game, and I can't remember who the developer was. Famous 80s sort of new age type. I can't remember his name, but anyway, his game were on, and he went, "Well, that's strange. I've not even written that yet." So they'd almost, did what that game made up? Does it exist? Is anything there? Is it just an empty shell? But it's here, and there's YouTube videos for it.
I'm just trying to think of the guy's name now. Is it the chap who did a llama game?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
In the 80s. I'm just trying to think of the chap's name. Jeff Minter.
That's him.
Yeah.
Jeff Minter. Yeah, that's him. Shouldn't call him New Age. I'm sure he'd be offended. But
no, he's certainly got a hippie style to his games.
Yeah, and his games
to who he is. Yeah, so
but yeah, so there were a start. I think there were a teaser where somebody were purporting to play, and I'm not saying they weren't because I didn't see any results. I didn't see anyone come back to claim. Yes, it is. It's just a mock-up, but I think it's as if somebody made it up. I don't know, but he did come out and go, "I'm very surprised that that's there because I've not developed it, so I don't know where that's come from." So then it was like, well, hang on then. So they're making this up. But it does exist. People have got the consoles. There's a couple of good ones out there. Somebody's even looked at. So basically, what is it? So over the years, it's changed. It was just going to be a console, a retro console, and I think originally I should imagine looking at it, it was going to be just a reimagining of the 2600. And maybe a little bit more, but I think since then there's been other consoles coming out with all these games on, so it's moved on over the years. And rather than just be, well, this is the next iteration of the Atari console, it seems to be it's a catch-all, and I think it basically a PC with the hardware's PC. So if you have a look, it's got it's a Linux OS, so it's a Linux kernel.
Yeah, I remember when this first. I mean, it was about 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
When they announced it, it's like I think it was around about the same time as the Steam console is going to be Linux based.
Yeah.
And they were trying to push the whole Linux gaming platform. And it was thinking, oh, great, that's another platform. And apparently it was going to have Steam on it or something as well.
Yeah,
so we're Steam games.
We're going to have an app store. We're going to have Steam and other stuff. But I think this is where the first lawsuit, so the person who were writing that OS, I think, I don't know too much details. He basically wasn't getting paid. So it's a different UI altogether, and I think I've looked at it. It does look nice. It's got for a start off the CPU. It's an AMD Raven Ridge 2. It's a Ryzen GPU, or other way around. In fact, I don't know if they've got this right. APU GPU's a Ryzen, and APU's AMD Raven Ridge 2. I don't know if that's the wrong way around. it's got. I mean, the storage is only 32 gig of hard drive, EM, but it's just an eMMC which you can take out and put your own in.
That's not too bad. I mean, it's
yeah. I mean, it's not bad if that's just the OS, but it's got unlimited external USB and cloud as well. But it says cloud, that it's a subscription required. So I've not looked at that, so I don't know what that is. And then it's got 8 gig of RAM in as well, which again is upgradable. But what's weird about it, it's got 2 modes now. It actually has a PC mode, so you can put Windows 10 on it.
Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Because that kind of like defeats the object of a device like that.
Yeah. So
it's a little. Do you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the they're called EEPCs. You remember the small little mini computers, not tablet computers, like they were clamshell computers. I think they were called EEPC, and they were all Linux based, and it was like you had everything on there. You had a browser and everything else, and they were tiny little, almost like a Chromebook pre-Chrome. And it was like, okay, this is amazing. I can go onto the internet. I can do this, can do that. But then people found like, well, I can't get Skype for this, or I can't get this because it's Linux based. And a lot of people kind of like, well, can we get a Windows version? So they started bringing out Windows versions, but it was very crippled. It was an awful version. It just didn't work very well because they weren't really made to run Windows in the first place. And that almost seems like to me that certainly the people who are doing the Atari VCS are planning to like go down the same route of, well, let's see that we probably won't sell many of these. It'll be a niche market. But if we allow Windows to be put on it, then there might be somebody out there who will have one of these as a Windows machine. And I think that defeats the whole object of it. I think they should stick to the OS they've decided and put in a bit of customization in there and have it working like a console. If they want a desktop version, just switch, I don't know, maybe put an overlay for the console and then switch off the overlay, a little bit like the Steam Big Picture, where you can tell Steam's going a big picture, almost like a console. If you did it that way, then at least then it makes more sense. You might want a full-blown desktop occasionally. But to say now you can install Windows, well, then why don't you just have a Windows-based system which has an overlay?
Yeah, and I don't know. So I'm not even sure why they've done that. What the reasoning is, and I'm trying to have a look actually to see if it.
So I mean, it still looks very retro. Obviously the planning two sort of controllers. The original looking controller, which looks slightly updated, and one controller, which I'll be honest with you, looks very much like my Steam controller there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would go as far as to say the Steam controller is not the nicest to hold on to. PlayStation have still got the design on that. So yeah, I mean,
it's weird really because it's obviously got the retro. It's got the Atari store, which is basically the Atari 2600 games, which basically you can exclusive collection of 100 of Atari's most popular classic games. But then it's got Amstream, which is the retro again, another platform for arcade games.
Yeah, you've got Atari VCS a companion mobile app as well, where the VCS companion app allows you to have a virtual mouse to navigate. Okay, so they're touting that you can have Chrome installed on this.
Chrome is on that. In fact, it comes with Chrome. Because I mean, it's got Game Jolt on as well. I don't know if you've heard of Game Jolt.
No, I've not heard of that.
So it's basically, it says here, Game Jolt is the collaborative marketplace for indie game developers with over 100,000 titles and more to come. So again, another platform. So that's 3 platforms that they're talking about.
The interesting thing on this, so what they are saying on this device is that you can boot into a different. So it's like you can reboot into a different OS.
Yeah, this is
for
where
the desktop mode, PC mode. Yeah,
PC mode. Yeah, because it's a Debian-based Linux.
Well, that's actually not too bad because when you look at it a little bit further in there, it says run your favorite OS: Linux, Windows, Chrome OS, and Steam OS. So it gives you a little bit of sort of leeway, but I don't know. I'm not sure where that's going. It seems like almost like a PC that's just stuck inside of an Atari console.
It's as if we can't decide what we want to be.
Do you know what? With something like this, do you know what I would have done? I would have licensed the controllers, both the controllers, to work with Windows and Linux. Maybe even Android, for gaming. I would have created a store, and I would potentially put my games on Steam or put my games on Android if I could, iOS or whatever else. And I'd just go with that. And if you want one of the full end devices, then buy it as a niche device. But I think they're almost getting to that point of watering down what the product is. Is it a gaming machine now? Is it full PC? Is it a console? It'd be interesting to see what this is like. But it's been a long time coming, and I'll be honest with you, I completely forgot about this device even existed. I just assumed that they'd not done it. So I'm glad they're still doing it. I'm glad there's still going to be a new Atari console. But now it's the Atari's new PC console hybrid.
Yeah.
So it's not what it used to be.
I think really, I think they tried to make it their own platform, but I think it's like, well, hang on, all we've got is retro games. I don't think they got many developers on board that wanted to develop solely for this. I think I don't know who's behind this. Obviously, somebody's just bought the Atari brand. It's not Atari. It's certainly not the original. But obviously, when they look at developers, they want people to develop. It's in Unity and Linux, so that they're looking for. So to me, it's like, right, we've fulfilled. To me, I think it's like, right, we've fulfilled the. I don't know if it was Kickstarter or the other one.
I believe it might have been a crowdfunded initiative.
Yeah. So I think it's like, right, we've fulfilled that now. So that's his legal obligation or whatever to do that. Now it's up to.
So let's just assume right now, in say August 20, well, not right now, but in August 2021, I decide I'm going to buy myself a new console.
Yeah,
and I go, I like what PS5 does. I like the games that it does. And I like the Atari VCS. I like what it does. I like the ability to boot into OSs, even though I'm not too sure about that. I like the look of it. It's retro. And I go into the pricing. And for the grand price of $389, gives me the console, which I'm guessing it gives you one of the old controllers or one of the new controllers. And it also includes 100 free Atari console games, so I guess they're all licensed after all the debacle. Whereas
you've got because it looks like it gives you the bundle actually. So so for that, it's giving you the walnut version.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're going to bring out an all black one. So I think this is the walnut version. So you get that. You get the two controllers, like you say. And that's it.
So let's just assume that for the pricing doesn't change much for the PS5. Where I'm looking at, and again, it's whether or not you're actually going to be able to get hold of these things. About £450 on average, if you're lucky to get a PS5. So that's a lot more because 300 and what we're looking at, 389. So that's about £300. So you're talking about 150 to possibly £200 to get the PS5. Now I totally understand these are totally different sort of styles of consoles, and one person will want one, and another type of person might want another. But that's not actually a bad price.
No,
because it gives you access to a machine that. All right, it's not underpowered, but it's certainly not overpowered.
I mean, I'd like to know what the CPU is. It doesn't really. I mean, what?
It's a Ryzen multi-thread processor. I'll have a look at which one it is.
Yeah, because
it is the Radeon graphics. I'd like to think that maybe they'll upgrade that if it gets released, but probably not. So I'd say you'd probably better play a lot of games low end. A lot of the indie games you'd be absolutely fine with. 2D games, that sort of thing. 3D, well, I suppose we'd have to look at the exact specs on that. I suppose the only way to do that is to actually get hold of one.
Yeah.
Assuming this thing actually comes out, I'd be a bit reluctant right now to pre-order one of these devices.
I mean, people have got theirs. They've got the one, so they are using them. And a shout out to ETA Prime as well. He's a good. So he does a lot of retro gaming stuff, and he, anything imaginable he can get. So that's what he's done with it straight away. Is basically put it into Windows PC mode, and it can do up to 100 FPS on PS2 and PSP games.
I mean, that's the other thing that you could do with this, being that you can actually. What I do like is you can do anything with it. They haven't locked it down. So a PS5 you can't do anything with.
No.
This you can. You can just wipe it or do whatever you want. So that being said, what you could do is you could say, do you know what? I'm going to leave it as it is, but I'm going to boot into an OS which gives me access to arcade games.
Yeah.
So you could get one of the many distributions out there that you can put on Raspberry Pis and find a same version with all the ROMs, which obviously clearly you all own for the licensing. And you could actually turn this into a little games console. Obviously, you've got your Atari games already. You could actually have this, like you say, playing PS2 games and things like that quite easily. And to be fair, this is much more powerful than the Raspberry Pi I put in my arcade machine that I built. That was a Raspberry Pi 4, I believe. So that would easily kill this. This would easily kill that in terms of performance of the games you're going to be able to play.
You do get 100 games.
You do. But you can actually then just get your own and roll your own distro and download your own ROMs, which obviously you want.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I said that kind of it's like it seems a little bit confusing where they're going with this, but I kind of see it now. I see the scene that look. This is you can have a nice Atari console, up to date, powerful. You play the old games, you got access to other things, or you can just roll your own. I actually kind of like that for the front room. And you know what? My kids would play on this.
It's a multimedia.
Yeah.
It does. It's 4K. When it says 4K streaming, I should imagine then somehow you can get Netflix on there. It's got Chrome OS.
You can run it. Yeah. You've got Chrome on there. You can do it. So actually, this would replace. I have a Windows box at the moment that I use for Netflix and everything else.
And I think that's what this looks nice. Yeah, it's a piece of I'm saying it's a piece of furniture. It's not. It's made out of plastic with a bit of walnut on the front, but and a glowing Atari logo.
Dare I say two of these, one for downstairs and one for in my office. So do you know what? I'm going to take it back. I'm going to apologise to the people behind the Atari VCS and say I can see where you're going with this, and actually there are some good uses for this. And
so it looks like
the price point, $389, about £200 ish. That's a good price.
It is at the moment with the dollar and pound.
With the exchange rate, and I expect that price to go up after it releases.
Yeah, because and I don't expect to get the walnut version either. I think the cheaper version will be the all black version.
So, do you know
and
what?
I don't think you'll get the joysticks with it either.
I might actually took a little bit away money for this one because actually I might grab one of these after all.
See, I've just got the Spectrum.
Well, that's good because you've got the Spectrum and I've got the Atari, and we can compare the two and work out what we think. And there's a prediction for 2021. I'll probably end up with an Atari VCS.
Well, you'll need to order because it says it is out Q1.
Yeah, spring 2021.
How many are they making? Of the walnut version, I don't know. It doesn't say limited stock. It just says pre-order. I do. Yeah.
So it is a fixed 32 gig eMMC, so it is fixed internal. So that's probably soldered to the board. But then you've got an internal M2 SSD slot,
Yeah.
which is empty, and then you
Yeah.
can do unlimited external USB HD, that sticks, that sort of thing.
And you can upgrade the RAM.
You can upgrade the RAM. I mean, even got an Ethernet port on that, so yeah, that might be possibly a purchase this year, after all. So let's quickly move on before I end up clicking on pre-order on that one.
Yeah, well, you can do it. It doesn't take your money now.
It doesn't, no. So in terms of other devices, innovations and small PCs, we've got another one in the list there.
Certainly have. So, I mean, you're the one with the A400, and obviously I know you've not had time to look much of it, but this has been a long time coming. And I'm hoping 2021 we're going to see more, not just a Raspberry Pi branded one, but based on, somebody there's not many enclosures. Basically, there's not been many enclosures with a keyboard. And what I'm hoping for, and I know a few people have tried, there's been some with, they've done a mechanical keyboard. One looks like a BBC. And I think, I don't know if that were a Kickstarter or they did something, but they're certainly not available now. So there's not many out there. So what I'd like to know is how many people have bought the A400 and used it, and what have they used it for?
Yeah, maybe I'll. So for this one, then do a follow up on this.
Because I'd like to see more, and I think people are waiting to see what Raspberry Pi have done with theirs at £100. Some people, I'm sure, are going to be a bit cheaper. I'd like to see, a model one on. It may look like a Commodore, it may look like this, and it may look like that, like basically an 8-bit. But inside, so yeah, I'd like to see some more. And I'd like to see people mod it as well.
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the future, is having a PC where. Well, what you mean by enclosure? You mean that the computer's inside the actual keyboard itself, so that
it's basically an all-in-one,
like the Pi A4, like Pi 400.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with that. I think it's never going to be like a platform where it's going to be in everybody's house like it used to be. But I do think there's a lot of people out there like ourselves and younger people now who love retro.
Yeah.
I'll just love like a something to play with.
Well, I've been skirting around for an enclosure with a keyboard. Yeah, I've got some Raspberry Pis, but there's nothing out there throw them in apart from. Obviously you've got the cases and that, and people have brought out some very imaginable cases, but there has been one or two, but they're not available anymore for enclosures with a keyboard. And that's already there. I'm having to plug a USB keyboard, USB mouse, and so forth. I want to be able to have an enclosure that I can, if I want to later, stick an external hard drive in there, put some other stuff in there, and just config it myself. It's module, so let's have a module all-in-one computer case enclosure.
And I think really your price point needs to be very similar to the VCS. Really, you have to have something that's completely open.
Yeah,
that you can play with, you can do what you like with, but it is a lower price point. But it's going to be niche. I would like, you have put it in there, so I'm going to kind of steal that particular suggestion you've put in there. I'd like to see an A1200 be revitalized. I'd like to see an A1200 where you've got Workbench running on there, and you can play the old Amiga games. And maybe there's some licensing that's done with some of the old publishers, if some of them still exist, which some of them don't anymore, or get a license from somewhere, and have an official A1200. I honestly think that would fly like hotcakes. I'm still an enthusiast. I've got an A1200 in a case beneath my desk from the old days, and it still runs, it still works, and I'd love to see that sort of thing come back. We've got C64s, you've got the Sinclairs. Let's go for the Amiga next, the real Amiga. Let's go for 1200, so we'll play the 1200 games. You could easily do that on emulation, and then do what the VCS does. Say, okay, you can boot into desktop so that you can turn off the emulator, so you're not booting the emulator, and you boot into desktop. You've got Chrome, you've got everything else you would expect from a desktop, and you can add extra memory, you can add storage exactly like the VCS. So yeah, I agree. I'd like to see more of these projects come out. I honestly, I mean, whether or not you could use the Commodore label or even the Amiga label, but if you say that it is Amiga-like, or just work out some legal ramifications so you can bring it out, I think that would work. And there's a lot of enthusiasts out there who still have these things running and absolutely die for an Amiga that you can just fire up and it feels like as if you've just bought one, like we did years ago.
These are manufacturing that actually, in fact, I know these online that actually manufacture new cases. They do the Commodore 64 ones, but not the old bread bin ones, the newer ones that came out, and they do the Amiga cases in different colours. You can buy them.
You can, and you can still buy parts, and people are producing stuff still for the Amiga today. I mean, we're in 2021, and you can still buy parts. I mean, if there's somebody out there who wants to do it, honestly, to God, we will love to see one of these things being built. And I can only imagine if the Sinclair and the Commodore versions that you've got behind you there, and the one that's on its way to you, these new versions, if they are selling well and they're selling out, then the Amiga one would absolutely just fly off the shelves. Let's make it happen. Let's see somebody do it, and maybe if it doesn't happen, maybe someone now after hearing this thinks, do you know what, it's a good idea.
Yeah, or maybe not. There's a Retro Brothers branded
Retro Brothers A1200.
Yeah,
it's doable. It's doable.
Yeah. Built live in the podcast.
Yeah. Don't get me started. You'll give me ideas.
Well, so, you've always said you wanted ideas to do.
Yeah, something. Exactly. But I have a feeling that would take up the rest of my life. The next thing you got in 2021 is the ARM processor.
Yeah.
Very, very apt processor for 2021, I think.
Yeah, judging what I mean, I'm always a bit dubious, and we're going back to Apple because they're that was the big thing of last year was their M1 processor based on it's an ARM processor basically. They've already had years of doing it, already, so they know it's stable. They've got it, in the iPads. They've got a variant in the iPhones, and now this. And some of the videos I've seen, I'm very skeptical because you can tell Apple fanboys from afar they're too enthusiastic to a certain degree, but I've seen some others. I've seen some proper people in music industry. I've seen video editors getting just bog standard 8 gig M1 laptop, and even the Mac Mini, and they said it's blown away their top end i9 i7 Intel £3,000 variants. Not just doing pure benchmarking, but even the scores, they're not far off. Some of them are slightly behind, but they're not far off. You can easily, apparently, done it. You can easily, not compress, but you flatten down a 4K file. Big thing in about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. 8K raw. I think it's the struggle. But don't forget, this is the first iteration, and these are the base models. Now, some of the scores and some of the videos I've seen, people, throwing on, in a DAW, chucking in absolutely hundreds of tracks, plugins that normally you wouldn't be able to run, and it just work. They just work. Even those that are still written in, 386. They're not, not written in native ARM yet because it runs on Rosetta 2, which is their, which basically converts the code. They run better. So what they're going to be like when it runs native. So what's 2021 going to give? And is Intel going to start? Are they going to think? What's going? Because like you say, Intel do throttle their processors, and in Macs, the way Macs run and their heat dispersion have been poor over the years because it's design over functionality in a way. So they really did throttle the processors, Intel-based processors. But they don't seem to throttle the M1 at all. In fact, one of the laptops I think doesn't even have a fan in; it's fanless. But yet, the scores it brings up, it can edit 4K videos. So there's a lot of professionals using them, and that's on 8 gig. Because what they're saying is, don't think of 8 gig as in old terms, because memory on the M1, certainly on their chip, it's system on a chip. The memory's on. It's got 8-core GPU on the same chip. And the gaming, okay, there's not a lot of games out for it at the moment, but the games they have run, they can easily get 70 FPS stable on a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the gaming now, I think maybe 2 years ago you might be sort of talking. You're still not going to get much gaming on Macs, but I think with Vulkan, being there now, I mean, Vulkan is so much better. X-Plane moved from OpenGL to Vulkan, and the sort of the performance improvements, and the fact that now they can write against Vulkan for 3 OSs instead of just one, and then having to write various ones for the others. I honestly think that you're right there. I think there's a good possibility that the gaming might return back to the Macs, because it kind of died a little bit.
It did, and I'm not necessarily saying it's the Macs that's gonna. But what I'm saying,
if you want to be able to play a game, then the opportunity is there.
Yeah, I think as a processor ARM, I think it doesn't have to be Mac, because so Microsoft, they did the Q1 chip in one of the Surface Pro X that they released a couple of years back. Now, Microsoft being Microsoft, they virtualized their emulation of free, and so they didn't run very well because it used their virtualization, just box standard virtualization technology. They've not. So I mean, the way Apple have moved it, it's sort of almost converted the code, not virtualized it.
They've committed and they've actually written.
So they've committed and done it, but then they've had 10 years experience. So I can. So yeah, but now Microsoft has just released the Q2 processor for the next version of Surface Pro X, which is meant to be a better processor, but it's only come out a few months ago. So I don't know how far they are. They have promised a lot of development, and a lot of big vendors are moving over process. So, well, if they're bringing it over for the M1 for the Apple, they're certainly going to do it for the Microsoft's Q2 chip. But if you've got these manufacturers like Apple, Microsoft now manufacturing their own chips based on ARM, what does that do to Intel? Because Intel are going to be losing out if they're successful. I'm not. What's that going to do?
This in the short term is going to hit Intel's profit margin.
Yeah,
I think in the long term, I'm hoping it's a positive thing for them. Is they'll innovate. They'll then realise that they can't just keep pushing out the next i7, i5s and hope for the best, because they were obviously the leader in the marketplace. So I think in the short term that they'll just lose profit. In the long term, hopefully they'll innovate and they'll hopefully bring some of these people back. I think the benefit of Apple moving to Intel all those years ago allowed for developers to easily just write programs for our apps for both platforms, Windows and Mac, very, very easily. Now we're now in 2021 where it's a lot easier, and I'm no expert on this, to write code and actually then port it to other platforms. It's much easier than it used to be. Yeah, be it you're not getting the performance that if you were natively writing in for that particular platform, but it's so much easier now to write for multiple platforms, whereas years ago it wasn't. So I think the benefit of moving to Intel to allow more compatibility is kind of disappearing. And for developers these days, it's so much easier to get their toolkit in place and go, I can write for the new Mac, I can write for Windows and anything else they want to write for. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing long term for Intel and for other people as well. Even AMD are going to see a hit. They're going to want to be able to innovate, so it's going to force them to continue to innovate as well. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I certainly think system on a chip's the way to go, though. You know, if they can develop, because you're cutting out all the middle ground. You're cutting out memories. You're cutting out memory swaps and all the other stuff.
Yeah, I have a problem with everything integrated now. Obviously, I come from a world, and you do as well, where the computers were integrated. Everything was in there. You might have an expansion slot if you were lucky on certain computers back in the day. But mostly the chips were soldered onto the board and it was all integrated, and that's what you got. So with something like this for the future, if everything's on one place, then it's going to be a lot harder for someone, one, to repair them, which will come on to...
and upgrade as well.
Upgrade. Now, yeah, I get it, laptops... They never really were, or notebooks, whatever you want to call them. They were never really there to be upgraded, and more so these days where they're encased inside metal chassis. Whereas you should be able to do it, and I think part of this, and I think it's a low percentage of the decision, but part of this is Apple's maneuver to avoid these repair shops, these independent ones, from being able to repair a MacBook or anything else efficiently or easily. They've for years now have fought these independent companies that do the repairs, saying and cut them out by not allowing them to get supplied the chips they need. So we're getting to a stage where a lot of them now are taking broken ones and they're harvesting parts. So by doing this, they're making it more and more harder for them to do the repairs. I think the decision for that part was probably a low part of the whole thing about moving to a different processor. I think in the long run it'll be a good thing. Whether or not it's going to affect people when they want these things repaired, well, let's see what happens to the after sales market on these.
Yeah, like I said, they've only been out for 3-4 months.
Yeah. So
we'll just have to see. But it is interesting. ARM technology has been out since the mid-80s.
Yeah, I think ARM's great. It's fantastic.
We all know it's an offshoot of Acorn.
Yeah.
And some of the original engineers there, they got told to start looking at a new CPU, but and it's just taken. So ARM is in the low end stuff, obviously, but now with the reducing, obviously what you got to think about is it's reducing instruction set. So it's quicker but more efficient. But does that also mean it's restricted? It doesn't seem to be at the moment.
No, it seems to be. It seems to be a fairly decent machine in terms of what you're saying on the benchmark. So, I mean, it's ARM on the Raspberry Pis, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Obviously, they've put some proprietary chipsets in there for the encoding and things, but I mean, who's bought ARM? ARM's been sold off, hasn't it now?
I don't know if it's been sold off yet. That's a good question, actually.
Because I believe that sold to Nvidia. So ARM UK based chip. I mean, that kind of upset me a little bit because obviously, again, not to be political, I like the idea of when we did Brexit that we would innovate as a country and start getting more innovative in terms of technology. So having ARM, the UK based chip designer, get sold to a US firm, Nvidia. This means that an Nvidia then are potentially. I don't quite understand the whole thing about ARM, and maybe that's something.
I think ARM is you lease the technologies
exactly.
So you license it. So
you're licensing it from.
Yes, so they don't actually manufacture their own chips. They hold the patents basically, and you license from them.
So in terms of that, Nvidia are by proxy making money out of what's happening with Apple and a few others. It's a good thing, and you know what? As these devices get thinner and smaller, and they require less heat and they require less power, and you know we're obviously always looking for ways of using less power in the world these days. I think it's a great thing. Please, Apple, if you're hearing this, which you're probably not, but please don't be doing this as even a small percentage of your decision to stop these independent people being able to repair your devices. They are an important part of the industry. They do help, and all they do is help promote your devices being able to be reused and have a bit of longevity in there. So please make it easier for people to repair your devices. Yeah, in the long run, it's great. It's great for ARM, great for a UK-based company.
Well, it is, and it's still remaining in the UK as well. Yeah. So the NVIDIA's chief executive has said that ARM will remain headquarters in Cambridge. So
we're always going to need a desktop with a huge CPU in it, hundreds of cores in the future, whatever else. But we still need these ARMs. We still need low-powered but powerful processors, and long may it reign. Yeah. So in terms of 2021, let's go with you beginning with your prediction for 2021. So if you could come up with one prediction, because I think we will be running out of time, what one big prediction do you have for 2021 for you?
Well, I'm going to stick with ARM. I think ARM's going to move. I certainly with NVIDIA, there's no reason why they're not going to do their own. I think ARM's going to be big. I think Apple are going to release the next level up. So these are only meant to be the baseline, and yet they're outstripping powerful specs. So it only needs, so that I think the next level will come out next year. That's going to mature a bit. So I think more manufacturers are going to move in that way. I can even see AMD really doing something with ARM, although you've got AMD and NVIDIA, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But
well, in theory, they should be able to license it like any other company.
Yeah, then license it. But did they delay that until NVIDIA release theirs? Is NVIDIA going to start coming out? Are they going to be a massive PC chip manufacturer?
CPU, yeah, they may do. There's maybe their way of getting entry to the CPU market, and
if Windows, if Microsoft, get their act together, and Windows and ARM becomes bigger,
a real thing. Yeah.
Do we see a transition? So for me, I'm sticking with that. I can see a slowdown on mobile for 2021 as well. We saw that in 2020. I can see that a little bit more in 2021 as well. I think it's going to be a bit stagnant, I think, on that side of things. So that's certainly it's going to be hard to gauge, with what's going on, but that's the two sort of pieces that I can see.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to go with slightly what's been occurring towards the end of 2020 and only becoming a massive thing for 2021. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to miss one key word out of this that keeps getting bounced around for years. 2021 will be the year of the, not Linux desktop, the desktop. It was dying. It was becoming a more of a niche thing. 2021 will be revitalized in terms of desktop gaming. It will be huge. I think only what's occurred towards end of last year in terms of many AAA games requiring decent kit will only continue this year as more and more people are wanting those graphics cards which haven't always been available, and as prices slowly regulate, hopefully, fingers crossed, I think there's going to be a huge surge. I think the marketplace for desktops being pre-built, and more so the peripherals, the hardware that go inside as well, is going to be huge this year. I think a lot of people were saying, graphics cards and CPUs and everything else, all those that people buy to build a PC, those days are going. No, I think people modding PCs, people building PCs like it used to be back in the noughties, is going to be a big thing this year. And I predict that there's going to be another the CPU war will continue, and the GPU war is only beginning in terms of this year. So I think if you're a desktop gamer this year, 2021, hopefully the prices will reduce and you'll have plenty to choose from, and it's going to be an amazing time. There's going to be some amazing games you can play on.
I certainly think gaming laptops, gaming, it's a brand, isn't it? Almost seems to be a brand now. Gaming laptops, gaming desktops, and not gaming anything other than just basically high spec desktops, but with a case.
I've got a bit.
So that it's not as if they're any different to what's always been there. It's just that it's a niche market. But now, you can go to any mail order catalog or anyone that's not even a specialist, but you can get a gaming desktop, you can get a gaming lap, and
gaming chair.
And okay, I think everyone's got. You look at how many podcasts or YouTubers out there with a gaming chair.
I don't know whether you can actually see, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, I thought of getting one. Then
there you go. So I've just leaned forward and I've got a gaming chair. Now I'm gonna probably possibly next week or week after talk about the whole gaming peripheral, not the gaming desktop, which I think is important. I'm going to talk about stuff like that where you talk, and more so I'm going to concentrate on the gaming chair and the industry around it. I've been doing some checking. This chair now, I've had it for about 2 years, but because of last year, I've been literally sitting on this thing 8 hours a day. For some gamers that means nothing, but it was cheap. It was cheap. But I'm going to talk about the whole gaming chair industry and how really it's so fixed on what you get. Even when you go premium, you really are just buying a chair that's just been rebranded. It's coming from the same factory, and all they're doing is changing the colours and stamping your name on it.
Yeah.
Whereas the competitors are using the same ones. You can customize it and things like that, and that's where the price goes up. But the whole gaming chair industry is fixed. And for the price you pay for the premium ones, you can buy some better chairs out there. There are some better chairs. The ergonomics of it are wrong. So I'll go through that. I'll talk about that. So yeah, you're totally right. I think added to that, the whole gaming peripheral, gaming chairs, gaming tables, gaming everything that's gaming on it gets just upped in price.
Yeah,
and people are still buying it. So yeah, that's you're definitely right there. I think that industry will continue for a good few years yet. So yeah, desktop gaming, that's my prediction for this year. I think it's going to be fantastic for us. I think there's going to be some great stuff to choose from. I think the prices hopefully will go down if this nasty thing called, what's it called? COVID, I think they call it. Once that gets wiped out or at least controlled, then we can get on with it. Manufacturers can get back in line and start pushing some hardware out that we can buy. So yeah, that's my prediction.
Excellent.
So we've got a few things coming up. I'm sure your head's full of stuff at the moment that we can probably talk about for the next few episodes. We're hoping to get more regular with our podcast, so this is a special, obviously, but we expect this to be out end of this weekend, and then we're going to do one every Saturday under pain of death if we don't do it, essentially.
Yeah, that's the plan, to do one Saturday to then be released Sunday night, so it hits all the platforms Monday. So start the week, it should be a new podcast.
It's new to us. It's been a learning curve in terms of like last year, trying to fit things in and working out the right times and how long to even do it for, how much content to put in. I think 2021, actually, no, I'll put another prediction. 2021 will be a good year for us as a podcast. I think we'll do okay with it. I think if we continue the way we're going, we've got a few plans for this year. I know my brother's going to probably pull a face, but we are going to start live streaming. So
I've kicked my room out specially.
Exactly. I've noticed that you've done a nice. I've got to do that. I've still got to do that. I've got to pivot mine round at the moment.
Floating shelf. I've got my own stuff. So yeah.
Actually,
it's made me now. This is even more weird because it's made me look online for another retro. It's like, right, what other retro? I've got space for another retro PC. What do I put there? And this one I'm thinking doesn't even have to work. It just has to look good.
No, exactly.
So if anyone wants to, on any platform where you can comment, I don't know if
people can comment on the
on the YouTube. Wants to comment, I've got a BBC Micro, I've got the Commodore 64 and the Rubber Spectrum, but what needs to complement it that looks good, and it doesn't have to work. It just has to look good. All these others work, but the next one doesn't.
So, we are releasing audio only at the moment on YouTube, but we are going to start recording the video and putting that onto YouTube as well, because we do record audio video at the same time. So it was always a plan to do that. So that's a plan. But anybody who wants to watch the show raw and see the mistakes we make in between, including things like me having nosebleeds, you'll be welcome to be watching that. Certainly on Twitch initially, and we'll probably start doing it on YouTube as well, which kind of makes sense. We'll interact with you. Anybody on chat, we'll talk to you while we're doing it in between. Possibly may I even have chat on the video version so people can see it. I'm not too sure about that yet, but we've got plenty of ideas like that. And
we will the theme music at some point when we convince people it's not anyone else's but mine.
We've had a very we're talking about platforms which remove videos just out of whatever reason. We've had issues with our own homemade music, which goes onto the podcast.
This is how bad it is, and obviously we're not on music podcast, but some people will know this. So technically, if you a filter sweep on a synthesizer, if anyone knows, it's where you get a squelchy sound, or you can do. It got a copyright claim, but it's a sound. It's not nobody's got. It's because somebody's obviously used it. The music everyone has, but they've it got a copyright claim.
We can talk about that. That's definitely one thing we need to talk about.
You said you can't copyright claim a sound.
They are doing. They are doing, and people are being struck off all sorts of platforms for that.
Yeah.
But so that's the plan. So we're going to be slicker, more regular this year in 2021. We've got a few plans. We feel like we're getting sort of a good formula together. And again, comments, just throw them on YouTube. We want to see comments, good and bad, just to get a feel of whether we're talking too much or we're talking too little. Are we giving enough technical information? We like to just hear us just rant, because we are older guys. We like to rant about things, and that's why we did this. So we will continue 2021 more regular. We've got some ideas, and Andy's room looks amazing now in preparation for it. I've got to do mine yet. I've got to move my desks round and have the shelves behind. I'm not quite sure what I'll put on there yet, because most of it's not retro, but we'll see. Yeah, so we'll leave it there, and we'll see everybody, and hopefully you'll hear from us very soon next week. You got anything else to say, Andy?
No, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks very much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.